Hello, my name's Susanne. Welcome to the 110th episode of Handmade, from the life of a knitting, singing, writing spinner. Today brings you the 11th ever English episode of the podcast. And one new thing, I believe I already talked about this in the last English episode, but I'm not quite sure. And well, it has been 5 months or so. The new thing is that the podcast can be watched on YouTube as a video. And I'm a doofus and I forgot to check how my channel is called. But you can find the video on the blog creativemother.de. And I'll embed it in the post. Just for those of you who get these podcasts by podcast feed, you won't see the video, I guess. Yeah. So I wanted to tell you about that. I hope that this will work because the English episode is usually quite a bit longer than the German episodes are, because this is the episode where I talk about everything that I talked about in the episodes before. Not quite everything though, because otherwise this would be a let me guess, like a 8-hour episode or 7. So a little too long, I think. I've been trying to think about what happened since the last time I did an English episode, and I think not all that much. I'm still working on the novel that I started in February and that I was sure would be finished by March or so. Yeah, as I said, I'm almost done, and the nearer I am to finish, the longer it takes. So I can barely make myself sit down and write. I think I'm afraid of finishing and of finding out if it's any good or not. Though, well, I'll probably not find out if it's any good, because I think you can't really judge that as the one who made the thing. So, as I said, I'm hoping to have that finished, and I made a big declaration of having it published by October 27th. Yeah, we'll see how that goes. At the moment, I'm still really determined to finish it in the next few days. I was really, really determined to have it finished by tomorrow, but I don't think that will happen, because I will have to write 5 more scenes. And since this is a regular Thursday with students and everything, and I haven't written a word yet, and I want to make the podcast and get it ready for publication. So, not happening. Other than that, no, nothing major. I went to visit my parents. That was not really that much fun, but they were very happy about it. No, nothing else. Only 2 more teaching days before summer break. I'm really looking forward to having 6 weeks off. Though I have to say that I will start my 6 weeks off with a week where I'm teaching 3 days. Not quite as long days as usual, but yeah, that's how it goes when you're a self-employed person. Then you take time off and you work anyway. Oh, and I wanted to say regarding the video, the video is basically me sitting in front of the microphone talking with my headphones in, and usually on the German episodes I will show what I've been working on, but since it's really, really hot today, and since I would have to show you everything I worked on for the past 5 months, I decided not to. Because the logistics of having everything here around me and being able to hold it in front of the camera. So I'm sorry, it's not really that much of a difference if you watch the podcast on YouTube or if you just listen to it. But I thought everybody likes videos these days. You can't look at anything without there being video, and so I decided to at least do bad video. I think it's better than no video, but you still can just listen. Okay, then I'll dive right in. I knitted. I finished the Carbeth Swan Dance sweater. So I've been basically obsessed with the Carbeth sweaters by Kate Davis. I made myself a cardigan, and then I started knitting a Swan Dance sweater right away afterwards. So I had inherited this yarn from, well, was a friend of my husband's wife's mother who died. And she was a knitter, and they gave me all her yarn and a lot of her needles and her projects in progress. A lot of it was, I don't know, not all that great. So that made me even more determined to get rid of my 80s sock yarn leftovers, where there's not one color is enough to actually finish anything, and the colors don't really look all that good. I didn't have a lot of money in the 80s, and I didn't buy very good yarn most of the time. So I made this swan dance from, I don't quite remember, it was a lana grossa wool, alpaca, merino, poly something. And it was really fun to knit, and I'm hoping that it will be a lounge around at home sweater for the winter. Right now it would be way too warm, of course, to even show you, but it fits well. I was a bit afraid that these lines on the Carbeth sweater, they go diagonal from the neckline to the underarms, and even more so than a proper raglan shape. It's the construction's really nice, but I thought that might look weird on me. But no, I'm actually liking it. And I mean, it's very boxy, and with the very heavy yarn, it doesn't have any drapes, so it makes me look a little bigger than I am. But it's cozy, it's warm. The color is not quite my color. The green is a little too blue for me, but I don't really care because, as I said, I want to wear this around the house. And I mean, I'm wearing black t-shirts every day, and black doesn't suit me either, so I'm fine. Then I did a Kriya sweater out of brown merino. I spun the yarn. I'll tell you more about that later. Sometimes I'm thinking I should turn the segments around and do the spinning first and the knitting later, because I usually spin for some project that I'm knitting on at the moment. So I decided that I needed another lightweight, or not quite as lightweight. So I started with the thought that I wanted something like my Vivian, and that I made out of worsted weight yarn. And I wear that all the time. It's really comfy, it fits well, it looks good, and the weight is. The sweaters that I'm using the most are the ones that are either fingering weight or worsted. So I thought, oh, I should make myself a worsted weight sweater, and maybe something not too busy and colorful, so that I can wear it all the time, and it goes with all my other clothes, and it looks good with jeans, because the past few years I've made a lot of sweaters that look good when worn with skirts or dresses, but I don't wear skirts or dresses all that much. So I still need something to wear with my regular blue jeans. And so I looked at patterns and I didn't like most of them. And in the end, I decided to make another Kriya. I had ripped the one that I made a couple of years before back because it no longer fits me. So I made well, I didn't make. I'm in the process of making another one, and this time I'm making the long sleeved version. The other one that I had was short sleeved, and I really liked that. But I own a lot of T-shirts with short sleeves, and you can't wear short sleeved tees with short sleeved sweaters. At least, no, I don't like it because then my arms are cold. So, yeah, I started. How was it? So, I wanted to take that project with me when visiting my parents. So, I needed the yarn before then. So, I think I did a week of mostly spinning most of the day. So, I had enough yarn to take it with me to start the sweater. I didn't finish all the yarn for the sweater before traveling, but I think I had like 240 grams by then. I did knit on the sweater while traveling, but I found that the start of the Kriya is a bit too complicated um, to knit while sitting there talking and traveling and changing trains. Because you start with two little pieces of garter stitch. They're not really square, but almost. And those sit on top of your shoulders, basically. And then you pick up stitches, and then you knit around these little flecks, and then you cast on a lot of stitches that go over your neck, and then you pick up stitches again on the other square, and that's the start of the construction. And then you knit the whole area of the neckline, the sleeves, and you have a lot of increases going on. You have garter stitch on the front and back, and stockinette on the sleeves. And so I found that I really had to pay attention to what I was doing, which I hadn't thought that this was complicated at all. But when you have a sweater like that, you need to count and to really pay attention to where you increase and how often and which row you're on. I found that much more difficult than I thought I would. So I didn't make as much progress as I thought I would, but I never do, don't I? Just the other day, a listener asked me, Why do you keep on planning all the time when your plans never turn out like you want them to? Why don't you just let things flow? Then you'll still finish things, but you won't be that frustrated." And I think, well, yeah, no. Well, it's a bit complicated, but that's not how my mind works, apparently. So I knit the brown Kriya until I ran out of yarn. Then I made more yarn, and then I started the first sleeve. I'm down to the cuff of the first sleeve right now, and then I put it away because I wanted to start a different project. I did start knitting a pair of socks. And now that I'm telling you, I'm thinking that maybe I also finished a pair of socks since February, but I couldn't find anything about that. So either I'm too disorganized, or I just started this sock project 5 months ago. I don't think so. But I can't really remember which pair of socks I knitted before then. That's weird. So I started another Annie Fletcher pattern. I'm still totally struck with her patterns. I love them. I knit them all the time. I'm not knitting anybody else's socks at the moment, which is a bit weird, I know. And this time I got the Brain War, I think is the name of the pattern. I put a link in the show notes, and I finished the first sock and started the second, and I'm just doing the heel increases at the moment. So I'm about halfway through the heel increases, and then I'll turn the sock and finish knitting it. I like it very much. The yarn is really, really gorgeous. Is by Dornröschenwolle, and the colorway is called something with Milchmädchen. That's milkmaid in German. And that yarn was a gift from a podcast listener. So I got that yarn, yeah, around the 100th episode. That was really, really great. And I'm stretching these socks out. My sock drawer is almost exploding. It's so full. And I've been quite good about washing the woolies lately, which is funny because it's, as I said, it's really hot at the moment here, but I'm still wearing wool socks in the morning and in the evenings. So most of the time, most of my socks are clean and ready to be worn. And so my sock and underwear drawer is totally filled up to the brim with hand knitted socks. I like having a sock on the go. So when I go into the city or I take it to the train or I'm meeting people, then I have something to knit a small project. I'm not knitting on that when I'm at home because I'm saving it for taking it with me. And the other big thing that I started was the Glowing Tide Mystery Knit Along by Isolde Teague. I am knitting clue 5 at the moment. I think, next week will be the last clue. This has been so much fun. I haven't really posted pictures of my project yet because I didn't want to spoil it for people who still want to knit it and keep the mystery. But it's really, really fun. And I'll tell you all about the spinning for that project later because that was a huge thing. But you need 3 colors for the project that are somewhat speckled and maybe gradient with colors that are pretty close together. And then you start, you start with like 2 stitches or so, and you make a kind of triangle until clue 2, I think. And then in clue 3, it said, now set that aside and start a new piece. And then you knit another triangle. And I think at the end of clue 2, you had to cast on lots and lots and lots of stitches. So you had a little triangular piece with like a tail on one side. And then you were knitting another triangular piece. And so we were all sitting there thinking, how on earth is this gonna be a shawl when it's finished? What is she doing? She's really, really weird. And now with clue 5, she did reveal how those 2 pieces go together, and I won't spoil it. But it's really fun, and it's like, so I read the instructions. Like, what does she want me to do? And if I do that, that will result in a tube. Why are we doing a tube with 2 triangular pieces? But then I knitted a little more and I laid it out flat and said, oh, that's how it's working together. This is so, so, so cool. That's a lot of fun. But I will have to say that next time when it's time for the Tour de Fleece in July. And July is often really stressful for us as teachers because the students have so much things going on at the end of the school year because we always have summer break in August every year. And so July is always full of things we have to go to, people we want to see before the summer break, students rescheduling everything and wrapping everything up at the end of the school year. So doing the Tour de Fleece is sometimes a little stressful. Putting a knit along on top of that, maybe not the best idea. Putting a knit along on top of that, for which I still had to spin the yarn, slightly crazy. It has been a lot of fun, but the project that I had wanted to be my Tour de Fleece project this year hasn't made quite as much progress as I would have wanted. But, well, can't do anything about that. Yeah, so that was all that I was knitting. Well, one sweater completely done, one sweater like 2/3 done, I think. Yeah. 1.5 pairs of socks, and yeah, mostly done. Well, not mostly done. I only just started clue 5 of the Gloaming Tide mystery knit along, so I still have like a third of that shawl to knit. Yeah. Then crochet. I still worked on the crochet blanket that I'm making for my son. I love it. It made wonderful progress as long as it was cold in the mornings and I could sit there under my nice cozy crochet blanket. But I packed it away, I think, around Easter. Nah, later. So I think I started the spin for the Kriya, and then I started something else, and then so the blanket took a back seat, and right now it's sitting in the bedroom in a corner, totally neglected. That's the same thing that I did with the Sophie's Universe crochet blanket last year, because I can tell you June to August is probably not the best time of year here to work on a big crochet blanket. So I'll get back to that soon, and I'm looking forward to it. Even if it's gray, and gray. Yeah, and I think I'm about 3/4 through it. Not quite sure, but it's pretty big right now. Then I started a crochet cowl. First, I started something called the Virustuch. That's really nice. So in that yarn stash from that knitter that I told you about with the Carbeth sweater, there was a very nice ball of, again, I think Lana Grossa. And I don't know how to call it. It has very long stretches of color. So it's not really a gradient, but I didn't want to use it for socks because it looks like a singles. And so I thought I'd take it and make a crochet shawl for myself, because it's the colors are purple, turquoise, and something green, and maybe brown, in that vein. So I thought, oh yeah, I'll make something for myself. And then I looked at it, and it was really, really pretty. This Virustuch has very curly, swirly crochet motifs. I love it. But I looked at it and thought, well, am I really going to wear this with all this turquoise and blue in it? Probably not. So I thought, well, I should make something for my husband, but my husband won't be wearing a triangular shawl that has all these curly swirly bits. So I frogged it and started a color pooling cowl. I wanted to make another one with from Tunisian crochet, but I would have needed two colors for that, and I only had the one. And I'm trying not to buy a lot of yarn at the moment because there are piles and piles and piles and piles of yarn everywhere, and I first have to get rid of stuff before buying new. So the color pooling cow, I didn't really follow the pattern as written because as written you use a yarn with very 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 long color repeats, and then you match the color repeat the length of the cowl to the color repeat length. I didn't do that. I'm just making a cowl that I hope is the right size for my husband's neck. He likes his cowl to be really smug, but of course it still needs to go over his head without being opened in any way. So mm, I hope that I'm getting that right. I started it and found that I wasn't happy with it at first because the foundation chain was really loose. The cowl is made with linen stitch, I think it's called. So it pulls in much more than my foundations chain. And then the cowl was a bit too wide. So I frogged it again. I started over. Right now, it's so tight that I can barely get it over my head, and my head is a lot smaller than my husband's. I think it's like 4 centimeter difference in circumference. 4 centimeters is like one. It's less than 2 inches. 1 3/4 or something. I can't calculate that in my head. So, but since this is Lana Grossa yarn, I'm hoping that when I wash it, it will grow anyway, and then it will be big enough for him. And I mean, if he has to squeeze his head through, I guess it will be all right because, as I said, he likes his cowls to be really tight. So, yeah, but I'm not sure. I might crochet the whole thing and then it won't fit him. We'll see. That was everything crochet. And then I spun. I spun quite a bit, interestingly. So there was green paw wool that I started spinning because I wanted to knit a hat for my husband. And I spun it, and I wanted to make a cabled yarn because my husband's rather hard on his hats, on everything that he wears, but even his hats. And I thought, well, I could make a cabled yarn, that would be fun. So I started spinning, and then I plied the yarn for the first time. So you probably all know this already, but I'll explain anyway. So a cabled yarn I made. So you make basically 4 plies, and then you ply 2 together. So like I'm spinning clockwise. Then I ply 2 strands together twice. I'm not plying them twice, but I have these 2 strands that I'm plying together counterclockwise. And then I ply the resulting 2 yarns together, and I get a 4-ply a yarn. And that's cabled, and it looks pretty different from the regular one. It's like a barber pole twisted, but the cable has like bumps. So I spun it, I applied it the first time while watching TV and not really thinking about what I was doing. And then I applied it a second time rather quickly because I wanted to knit the hat. Then I looked at the yarn and was like, oh, it didn't work at all. I had something that looked a little like boucle. So the problem was that the first time that I had applied the yarn, I should have given it much more ply twist, because when you apply it again, that twist gets taken out a bit. And so at first I thought that I applied it in the wrong direction, but that was not the problem. I just didn't apply it enough. So I had these 100 grams of yarn. And I looked at it and I was like, this is not what I wanted to end up with. So I looked at it and I thought, well, I can knit a hat from this. Nah. And then I realized, I even washed it, and it didn't look any better. And then I looked at it again and thought, well, I might be able to unply it. So make the 4-ply into two 2-ply yarns again. And I actually did that. I spent, I don't know, a couple of days with my spindle. I tried doing it on the wheel, but controlling the twist until I could separate the two strands was much easier on the spindle. So I even sat outside in the sun and I unplied the whole thing. And then I made 2 balls. So I separated the strands. So I had 2-ply yarns. Then I replied them and then I applied them again. And now the yarn is exactly what I wanted. I'm totally happy with it, but it was a pain to do this and it took ages. And I was so angry at myself that I hadn't spun it properly first time. Yeah, but that's done. I also finished spinning the purple noob on the Nuit Victoria. That I wanted to be, I don't know, heavy lace weight, light fingering weight. I'd like to do a small lightweight sweater out of it. Not quite sure what yet, but the yarn is done. I worked very, very little on the green merino silk. I think I'll carry that around for decades to come. I just saw, I have a bag on the kitchen bench with a never-ending hand sewing project in it. But on the bag it says Wollfest Regensburg 2015, and that is when I bought the purple nube fiber, and that's also exactly when I started spinning the green merino silk, and it's still not done. I mean, we're not talking 3 kilos of yarn. This is a 100-gram batch and supposed to be cable sock yarn. Yeah. So I made a rule. I'm not allowed to start any new spindle projects, by the way, until I have finished the ones that I've already started. It's been getting a little out of hand. I'll be talking about that later. So then there was, sorry, somebody just rang the doorbell, but my husband's already answering, so everything's fine. I spun the brown Ashford Merino on my little jam for Kriya. It says here that I spun 150 grams, but that's not true. It's like 400 or 390, something like that. So I spun a whole sweater's worth. I spent a lot of time spinning that week because I decided I want to knit a sweater when I visit my parents, as I said. And then I thought, well, I need yarn. I said, well, I don't have yarn. Well, I had yarn, but I didn't want to lug a kilo of, or that's like 2 pounds, of heavy alpaca yarn around when traveling. But taking a sweater project with me when visiting my parents is actually rather sensible because when I visit my parents, I sit there on their couch talking for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours. And I take the train up there and back, and each train ride is about 8 hours. So lots of knitting time. There was this one time when we visited my parents. We stayed there for 4 days, I think. I almost finished a sweater while being there. That was one of the black L'Oreal. Yeah, I basically sat there and knit the whole time. So didn't quite get at as far this time, but so I sat there. I need yarn. I still have 500 grams of white merino, but I would have had to dye it. I won't wear a white wool sweater, never. But I still had a lot of the brown merino because I don't know. I bought some for a project and then I bought some more because I didn't have enough for. So I don't know. I had 2 boxes with the same fiber, and all in all, there were like 600 grams. So more than enough. So, oh, brown is fine. I love brown and I love the sweater. And so I was just making a quick 2-ply yarn. It's, I don't know, sports weight. I think it's a sports weight yarn. So that went really fast, but I really spent a lot of time sitting in front of my wheel spinning. So it's always interesting what I can get done if I'm getting a little obsessed, like sitting there and think, I want to knit this sweater now. And then I sit down and I spin and spin and spin and spin and ply and spin. And no problem. And at other times or with other projects like the green merino silk, I've been carrying that around in my purse for years now. I'm very happy that it hasn't felt it, but I'm just not working on these projects. But so I finished that yarn, and I think I now have enough for the sweater to finish it. But if not, I still have fiber, so it's not a problem. And then I heard that there would be a mystery knit along by Isolde Teague. So I have a rule: I don't do mystery knit alongs anymore. Yeah. But I saw that and then I had a bad day. So I treated myself. I need to do an episode about the concept of treating yourself. I'm becoming a bit wary of this. Oh, you worked so hard. You can treat yourself. Yeah, well, so we'll see. But I wanted to participate in this knit along, so I needed yarn, and I thought, oh yeah, shawl knit along. I'll just take a skein of sock yarn or something, or I'll dye the sock yarn. I have white sock yarn here that I want to dye for projects. And then I read the instructions, not like, yeah, downloading, skimming them. Oh, okay, mystery starts at beginning of July 7th, I think. No, I looked at them more in depth and thought, well, okay, for this knit along, we will need 3 100-gram skeins of sock yarn. And it should be speckled, and it should be something like a gradient. So I had a problem because I only had at that point 2 weeks time to make the yarn. And I didn't want to buy anything because that's always so expensive. And I didn't want to dye the sock yarn that I have because this time I bought sock yarn that's not all that soft. I bought some that I hope will hold up better when you're wearing the socks in your shoes and doing your 10 to 15,000 steps a day. So I did the only sensible thing. I ordered some already dyed fiber. I mean, I still had the white merino. I could have used that, but I thought, well, when I dye it, then I have to wait until it dries. Then I spin it. Then I have to wash it. So that was too complicated. So I ordered some merino silk. That's the same kind of merino silk that I am spinning in that green project, and I've used it a lot of times. And I already had 100 grams of orange here, so I could start the spinning even before my order arrived. So I sat down, I spun the orange, and I thought, okay, I'll just order the orange, the yellow, and the red. And they go very well together, and I'll make my shawl from that. But then it said, okay, make a gauge swatch, and the colors shouldn't have hard borders. You need to have very soft transitions from one color to the other. So it took me ages to spin. I started only spinning 50 grams of the orange, and then the fiber arrived, and I started to spin 50 grams of the yellow, and then I spun 50 grams of the red, and then I realized that I had spun 50 grams of the red in the wrong direction, which made the yarn look completely different, interestingly. So I spun the next 50 grams in the right direction. I ordered more fiber because I couldn't use the 50 grams that I had spun in the wrong direction, and I still needed 100 grams. So ordered more fiber. Then I knitted the gauge swatch, looked at the gauge swatch, like, nah, this isn't working. So the yellow and the orange go very well together. The red is too different. This doesn't work. I still had some green and some darker red, but that didn't work either. So I was a bit desperate at that point. I had worked really, really hard. I think I spun between 1 and 2 hours a day over 10 to 14 days to finish that yarn in time for the knit along. Well, I wanted to finish half the yarn in time for the knit along. But then I realized I couldn't use the yarn that I was making because it wouldn't work with the shawl pattern. But then I had a moment where I woke up in the morning like, I could make a second color by taking one ply of yellow and one ply of orange and plying them together. And that would be perfect gradient without me having to dye anything. So I would have one yarn that's totally yellow, one yarn that's totally orange, and one yarn that's orange and yellow together. And the whole yarn is a bit marred anyway because it's the merino is dyed and the silk is white, so you have white silk going through all the strands anyway. So I ordered more fiber and I started spinning again. Yay! So I finished the yarn barely in time to start the knit along, and I am doing the knit along and I'm keeping up with the clues. Interesting. But then the Tour de Fleece started. I had wanted to finish the yarn before the Tour de Fleece because this year's Tour de Fleece project should have been that burgundy merino that you might remember that was my Tour de Fleece project last year and the year before then. The one that I dyed twice, that felted, that I then hand carded, that I'm spinning on a spindle for a hooded sweater with cables in fingering weight 3-ply yarn. Yeah, I know I'm crazy. And I still don't want to give up on this project. So I thought, this year will be the year when I finish this. Only I don't think it will, because it took me, I don't know, more than a week. Yeah, like 9 days or so to finish the yarn for the Gloaming Tide mystery knit along. And I have to say, I wasn't pushing really hard because I don't want to spin the burgundy merino anymore. This yarn's driving me completely crazy. I hate this spinning project. But the yarn is really nice, so it will be great when it's done. And well, it's an epic story, but right now, and it's still, the dye's still coming off, so when I spin it, I'm still having pink fingers afterwards, so I don't take it with me when I go anywhere. I just spin it at home. And yeah, and I try to remember not to touch too many things. Though I haven't had pink door handles or anything. So since I washed it the second time, the color has been much better. But as I said, it's still rubbing off a bit. So that's what I'm working on right now. And I just see that I forgot the burgundy merino in my spinning projects. I think, yeah, because last episode I didn't talk about that because I hadn't started spinning on it again. So that's what I'm doing this month for Tour de Fleece, and then I'll carry that project around with me, I don't know, until into the next year. Yeah. I also don't want to knit the sweater anymore that I have been spinning for, because got fed up with that sweater. But I thought it might be fun to make the Stockbridge sweater from it. So I'm still totally in love with Isolda's patterns and making them all. Yeah, almost. So that's my spinning. I think I really spun a lot. Interesting. I don't do that. But well, when you need yarn and you don't allow yourself to buy any, then you have to spin it. So there is my project wardrobe. Yeah, I have a nice list of things that I want to sew. I have 2 dresses cut out, ready to get sewn, and I ordered I don't know, a couple of jersey fabric for t-shirts and yoga pants. But I haven't sewn. So right now my big plan is to take August and spend about an hour a day sewing. Yeah, I'm not convinced either. But I need new clothes. At the moment I have 1 pair of yoga pants that I wear every single day, and they have big fat holes in the back. So I shouldn't even open the door in these to the postman. I really need to get going on the sewing front, and I have this really, really great dress. It's called Q dress by Nina Lee, and it's all cut out. Only I was too lazy to actually measure everything and look if the dress will fit me. So now I'm not all that motivated to continue because I'm pretty sure that the skirt part will be too tight. On the other hand, the pattern calls for a 1.5 centimeter seam allowance, and if I just I can make it wider at the hips by just doing, I don't know, half a centimeter seam allowance or something like that. So we'll see. Good, so that's that. And now I'm talking about everything that I talked in the last 9 episodes. So, what I talked about in the last 9 episodes. The first one, episode 101, was looking back 7 years and 100 episodes. Because last time I did an English episode was my 100th episode, and right now in, I don't know, 2 weeks or so, the podcast will turn 7 years old. So that's pretty impressive. But only doing 100 episodes in the course of 7 years is not quite that impressive. But I'm still going, and the podcast is still here, and you guys are still listening, and I love it. And so I look back on how I got started, and I even listened back to my first episode, and I have to say, it was pretty okay. I liked it. I don't know if that makes me weird or I don't know, too much in love with myself, but I didn't find it in any way embarrassing or so. So yeah, 7 years, 100 episodes, and then I thought about doing something new. I also thought about stopping the podcast for a moment, but then I got back to my senses again. Sorry, I didn't tell anyone. Yeah. And then I decided that I needed to expand, and I started to add the video. So, and then in episode 102, I talked about unfinished spindle project because I I hadn't been in the mood to spin on spindles at all. And at that point, I didn't spin a lot anyway. So I didn't spin. I had all these started projects lying around, and it was like every room of the house had at least 2 spindles in there with a started project that wasn't going anywhere. So I think I should stop starting that many spindle projects. And I definitely have to stop thinking that spinning 100 grams of 4-ply sock yarn on a spindle is a quick project that I can do in between other things, because that's not a quick project. That is like spinning, no, I can't. It's like 400 meters times 4. That's 1,600 meters of yarn that you have to make. And then you have to ply all of that. And if it's cable, you have to ply twice. So that's a lot of spinning. And especially when you're spinning very, very, very thin, and then your thread's always breaking, and you don't have the patience to get back to it, so you stuff it on top of the fridge and just let it sitting there. And then when you leave the house to meet people, you put the spindle project into your purse, and you think that you'll spin there, and then you never do. And if you do, you only do it for like 5 minutes. And working for 5 minutes on a project like this every 3 to 4 weeks doesn't get it done very quickly. Ask me, I know. So I was a bit desperate at that point and sad and just about to throw it all out. And then I said, no, I won't do that. I'll just pack all the projects up. The only thing that I have out right now is the green merino silk. So when I'm spinning on a spindle, I'm spinning on that. It should be self-evident and easy and not something I should even have to think about. But if you have like, let me think how many projects I had. There was the green merino silk. There's the burgundy merino, that's a big one. Then there's a red cotton spinning project on the Tuckley. Then there's some Targi on the Iced Tea Crafts Turkish spindle. Is that all? I think there might be another Turkish spindle project somewhere with a silk hanky, but I don't know. I might have thrown it away because it was... Yeah, I found the spindle. Yeah, okay. The project is no more. I have no idea if I kept the partly spun hanky or not. It's somewhere, or I threw it out. I don't know. But I found the spindle in where my spindles live when they're not in use. So, okay, that's like 4 projects. That doesn't sound all that much. But I don't know. The burgundy merino, that's like I need to spin, I think, about 60, 70 more grams. That is a lot of spinning. Well, I think that might be 40 hours of spinning, something like that. And then I need to ply it. So all these projects are spun with, they're all very fine yarn that takes ages, or very fine yarn in huge quantities, like fingering weight 3-ply for a sweater on a spindle. Yeah. But on the other hand, if I sat down like I'm doing now during the Tour de Fleece and spun an hour or 2 every day, I mean, if it's really 40 hours, I have no idea. Let's make it 60 with applying. It's probably more, but let's make it 60. Then, and I sat down an hour a day, every day. I would have done the whole project finished in 2 months. Which also means I shouldn't start another spindle project because I have enough spindle projects as it is. And I want to use the yarn eventually. So in that episode 102, I took stock of all my pinch spindle projects. I packed everything away, bought the green merino silk, though I always knew that I wanted to spin the burgundy merino during the Tour de Fleece. Um, but and I'm doing so right now. As I said, the green merino silk is mostly lingering, sitting around and being carried outside and then back. But yeah, I hope that that new spinning mojo that I have going right now will carry me over, and that something will get finished. Then the next episode, 103, is called Spätzle, Britzen, and Sewing Blogs. And my autocorrect has done something with Britzen that I don't like. So that was really fun. So uh, several sewing bloggers, Muriel von Nahtzugabe 5 Zentimeter and Melanie from the Flying Needle, and what's she called? Sabine from Die langsame Schildkröte, and somebody else that I don't remember because she got sick and couldn't attend. They all organized a blogger meetup in Augsburg. And some of them are living in Stuttgart and some of them are living in Munich. And Augsburg is basically in between. And it's a very nice town. And I found that I can get there in a little more than an hour by train, which meant I didn't have to book a hotel. So we met on Friday evening, not all of us, but a lot, for dinner and talk, and it was really fun. And then the next day we had we went to the textile museum in Augsburg and had a guided tour. That was great. And I think the poor guide got a bit intimidated by me because I was telling all these things like, yeah, I know. No, that's different because really it's like this, and really it's like that. And I just read this book about corsets, and no, sorry, you're wrong. So yeah, I shouldn't have talked that much, but it was a really interesting tour, and we saw a lot. I have been to the museum before, but still. And then we had lunch, and then we went on to look at and buy fabric, and we talked. And it was also interesting because I'm not sewing much, and there were all these sewing bloggers in their totally cool outfits that they had made themselves. So it was really great. And we talked and talked and talked and looked at stuff, and yeah, it was great. And then we had dinner on Saturday. Again, really nice weekend. And in that episode, I talked about that meeting, and yeah, that I had a lot of fun. But I did feel a little weird because I mean I'm a pretty experienced knitter and spinner by now, and I know how to sew, but I don't sew a lot. I always say I will, and then I don't. So I know quite a bit, but my actual experience and my actual skills are lagging behind. So I can read all the books about sewing and know all the things, but that doesn't really make my sewing that much better, because for it to become better, I need to train my fingers and my arms, and like how you actually do it. But on the other hand, I was wearing one of my swing dresses the one day, and and most of them had like cover lock or overlock sergers. That's what you call it in English, because it's called an overlock machine in German. Overlock machine, yeah, but it's a serger in English. It's a bit weird, but so. They mostly when they were working with knitted fabric, they would use their serger, and I don't have one, so I make all my jersey knitted tee things from not from with just a regular sewing machine. which also means that I have to repair the seams all the times because the seams aren't as stretchy as the fabric itself. Like at the moment, my orange swing dress with the red dots has a hole in the side seam again. It's always the same place where the seam rips. When I showed my husband, he said, "Oh, is that because your hips are so wide and they're stretching the fabric?" But no, that's not it, because it usually rips when I put the dress on over my head. So I have to get the seam over my bust and my arms through, and then over my bust, and then it makes and the seam rips. So I want to repair that as soon as possible because I want to wear it tomorrow. So I better pull out the sewing machine tonight, or I'll just hand sew it. I've done that a couple of times with leggings as well. Just take out needle and thread, do it all by hand. It's much faster. Nothing to pull out of the wardrobe and set up in the kitchen and remember which color thread and thread it all through, and then find that you still need to put some more thread on the bobbin that goes underneath. Yeah. So yeah, as hand sewing is actually sometimes easier for me because the threshold to starting isn't as big. On the other hand, sewing by hand just takes so long that I never do it anyway. So yeah, sewing and me, that's long story. I hope to get better acquainted with it, and I'm not giving up on my project wardrobe, even though the only thing I made this year was one t-shirt. It's the end of July, and I made one t-shirt in the year that I declared to be the year where I sew my own wardrobe. Yeah, but the year's not over yet. There are still 5 more months, and there's August where I have these vast stretches of time. Yeah, okay, forget it. But still, I'm hoping to get some sewing done in the next few weeks. You can cross your fingers for me. Then episode 104, and I need to get a move on because I only have 20 more minutes to record. I think you will be happy to hear that this won't go on indefinitely because I have a student coming in. 104. Why planning is always the most fun. I found that you know that I love making plans. I think, okay, I'll sew all these clothes and then I need this and then I will make it like so, and I will find the time by not going on the computer in the evenings and and then I make all these plans. I think, I'll make this and then I'll make that and then I'll use this time and I'll do that, and I love it. And it never goes as I imagine it. Never. I think that might be the nature of plans, that real life always intervenes. Now I'm experimenting a little with more agile planning. I was just about to buy another book about planning and organization. There was an interview with this woman, Johanna Rothman. Her name always confuses me because it looks so German. Johanna Rothman, no problem. But she's not German, she's American. She's Johanna Rothman, 1N. Yeah, if it were German, there were two, would be two. Yeah, blah. So, and she mostly works as a coach for people in the software industry, if I remember correctly. I'm not quite sure, but she wrote about agile planning, and that's like you plan in a way that if something goes wrong, you're not completely thrown off, but you plan in a way that there's a margin for error. And when something goes wrong, you say, okay, this went wrong, so we move this there, and everything can still happen on time. I would love to learn how to do that. Just building in more time for at the end, like say, I'm thinking that writing my book will take me 2 months. I can write a book in 2 months. I know I can. The only thing I like to say, that's like 80,000 words. That's 40,000 words a month. I can write, let's be really conservative, 1,500 words per hour. And now I can't divide 40,000. Let's say it's 90,000, that it's 30 hours in a month. That's totally doable. I mean, I can't do days where I write for an hour, practice for an hour, sew for an hour, and spin for an hour. I don't have that kind of time. But if I say, this is my very big, high priority project, I'm writing for an hour every day. And then I have weekends and days off where I can write for 2 hours maybe, in case I didn't get my writing in, which sometimes happen. I could totally write a book in 2 months. So I say, okay, I'm planning for this to be finished after 2 months, but I leave myself 1 month more so that I don't have to get stressed. I can tell you, when I do it like that, the book will take 4 months or 5 or 6. I mean, I'm very good at the planning. I'm not so good in actually making the plan a reality and adhering to the plan, because I know I said that I would write for an hour today, but I'm just so tired, and then all these other things came up that I had to deal with, so I couldn't write at all. But that's not a problem, because I can write for 3 hours on Saturday. Only I never do. So yeah, I'm still trying to get there, but the planning, I love the planning. It's just so full of potential. You look at that and say, oh yeah, I'm doing this mystery knit along, and I will spin the yarn, and that's really easy. I can fit it in there, and then I'll move that to the end of July, and no problem, and I love that. The actually sit down every day and do the thing that I plan to do. Still working on it, but still, planning is fun. Say, yeah, I want to make a very lightweight sweater from this really nice purple yarn that I spun. I've been looking forward to this sweater for years now, because I bought the fiber in the fall of 2015. I bought it and thought, it's been this really fine, and I'll make myself something like the featherweight cardigan from it. And I love it. So the spinning took almost 3 years, 2.5. Now the yarn is sitting on the piles, on the dressers in the bedroom. Yeah. But I mean, getting some, but sit there and hold the fiber. It's like this promise, this potential. You can see it, like, ooh, this is so nice, the fiber. And I'll spin it into 1,000 meters of very nice fluffy two-ply. And you can almost see, no, not almost, I can see myself in the sweater. Like, I look at the fiber, I know how great it will be when the whole thing is done. And then I make a plan to get me there. And then something happens, and I don't know, and I get impatient with the spinning wheel, because I used the high-speed flyer, and it's a total pain to and fiddly to when you break a thread, to get it back through those hollow arms with that awful orifice hook. I need to get a better one, because that one is just slightly too short and slightly too wide. It's driving me completely crazy. But yeah, by the way, that's what complaining is good for. now that I've complained to you publicly about how this orifice hook is driving me crazy, I can start go looking for one that would be better with the wheel. Yeah. Okay. Then episode 105 was about why UFOs become UFOs. So why are unfinished objects unfinished? It's not because you're lazy. It's usually because you made this totally great plan and then something went off the rails. So usually it's because you're knitting along and then you come up to a point where you know something went wrong, but you don't have the headspace to find out what. Or you don't even actually know that something was wrong, but you just don't feel it. And that's often a sign that something is wrong. Or you're knitting along, everything's fine, and your subconscious wants to tell you something, that what you're knitting is too small or too big, or that something isn't working, or that your yarn won't be enough, something like that. Or you're knitting along and then you see this other new shiny thing. And the new shiny things are always what we gravitate towards because they're new and shiny and unspoiled, because everything that you actually make has a slog in the middle. And it's not easy pushing oneself through the slog. And there are a lot of people who say, but this is my hobby, I do this for fun. Why should I push myself? And so I can just tell you, usually when you push yourself, it's worth it because then you'll have a finished object at the end. And who wants to die in the midst of all these unfinished projects? I mean, I inherited bags and bags of things that this knitter never finished. It was sad. There was a bright red and bright blue intarsia sweater in there. I mean, the back and front were both done in acrylic yarn. It was horrible. But she had put so much work into that. And the effort to finish it would have been about the same amount. I mean, it was just the sleeves, but you know how that last bit of finishing, that always takes more energy and time than you think it will. But still. So there are many reasons, and I can't tell you about all of them because I only have about 10 more minutes. So, but usually there's something wrong, you give up, and what you really need to do is either tell yourself to push through and throw away the slog and tell yourself, I will be so happy when this is done. And if you put it aside, like with the green merino silk there, that feels like it's never ending because I'm not working on it, because the thrill is gone and it's just more of the same and more of the same and more. And I mean, how much green can you spin? It's really boring. But I know if I just push some more, then I can finish the spinning and then I can start applying and then it will be done pretty soon. But right now it feels like it's never ending. So or there's something wrong with your project and you need to sit down and confront what is wrong with this, what can I do to fix it, do I want to fix it, or do I want to throw it away? That's perfectly fine if you want to, but just pack it up and forget about it. That never works because you never forget. It's still sitting there. You know that it's there. So, episode 106, when is it time to say goodbye to a hobby? I linked to an article on Unclutterer. I'll put it in the show notes. I think it's unclutterer.com, where it was, when is it time to say goodbye to a hobby? And basically what she said was, it's pretty clear when you have this tennis racket in your garage and you haven't been playing for the last 20 years, and also you have a bum knee and can't play anymore, then get rid of the tennis equipment. It's a bit harder to look. And when she said, yeah, we have all this camping equipment and we only went camping once last year, So for me, I'd say keep the camping equipment. We have a big garage. There's lot of space, and it doesn't go anywhere. It's totally fine. But the unclutterer person said, get rid of it. If you haven't spent more than 48 hours, I think, or 24 in the past year working on that hobby, get rid of it. So I'm not quite sure about that because I mean my rigid headloom is sitting there untouched. Has been sitting there for 2 years. I'm still pretty sure that I will one day finish those towels. It's just that weaving, it, it's hard to fit weaving into my life. I have to actually make an extra space for it. Like knitting just fits into my life. I go into a pub and take a sock to knit, or I sit there in the morning when my husband has breakfast and knit, and I sit in front of TV and knit or spin, but I can't sit in front of TV with my rigid headloom. So, like sewing, weaving takes an extra space, but I still want to change my life in a way that I can use my rigid heddle. Now, if I don't weave in the next 10 years or so, I would sell it. But as I said, it's basically it's your choice. You can store everything, but it won't make you happy, I can tell. So then episode 107 is called A New Crazy Spinning Project. And I told you all about that already because that was the Gloaming Tide mystery knit along spinning project. Because when I had this, oh yeah, I'm spinning for this knit along. Oops, it's 300 grams. Oops, I spun the wrong color. Oh, and now I have to spin 100 grams more and have to order more fiber and more fiber and more fiber, which was not my intention. I wanted to only order very little fiber because I have a lot of fiber here, but nothing was right for that project. So, but you already know all about that. Episode 108 was about minimalism and Project Wardrobe. I already told you about Project Wardrobe. Minimalism is something I've been thinking about for a long time. It's the same thing like my fascination with tiny houses or light traveling. I love it when everything's reduced to the essential. Though what I need, what I deem essential, is not minimalist. I'm not a minimalist. I don't think I will ever be one. I'm not quite sure if somebody who owns 2 spinning wheels and half a dozen spindles can be a minimalist. I don't know. I mean, depends on your definition, doesn't it? But I know that I hate owning stuff that doesn't get used or that just sits around. And I mean, I'm sitting here there are piles everywhere, and I still can't seem to get rid of them. I'm trying because I think that if I had just things that I loved and used, and even the camping gear that I haven't used in years, I don't think I would throw that away or sell it. But I mean, books that I'm sure that I'll never read again, I can get rid of those. I already did. And I read The Year of Less, by the way, by Kate Flanders. Big recommendation. I love the book. So that was interesting. And episode 109 was about the Tour de Fleece 2018. I already told you most about that as well. So as I said, I finished spinning the yarn for the mystery knit along. That was very enjoyable and was so fascinating how all of a sudden I could find 1 to 2 to 4 hours a day for spinning. My family basically accepts that I spend my weekends lounging in front of TV with my spinning all month. Well, almost 3 weeks. But finding time to sew, totally impossible. Finding time to write, really, really hard. But I'm working on that. But I also have to admit that Tour de Fleece is always a huge thing that sits squarely in my July, even if I didn't plan to spin for hours this year. I thought, okay, I'll just sit down and spin a little bit. I mean, the Burgundy Merino won't get done by that. Well, it will eventually over the next 50 years or so. But I didn't want to stress myself out. But still, I like to watch the tour, and that takes a long time. And then we watched the World Cup before that, and I spent a lot of time spinning on the Mystery Knit a Long Yarn while watching soccer. So I don't know when I turned into a person who watches sports on TV. If you had told me when I was 14, I would like, are you crazy? Yeah. You can change a lot in 40 something years. No, I'm not 55, not quite yet. So yeah, and I'm really hoping to make some more progress on the Burgundy Merino until the end of the tour, which is only a few days away. I just realized, and I have spun up everything that I carded. So next step will be carding more yarn, and I'll pull it out tonight and weigh what's left to be carded, because I have a list somewhere, but I'm not sure that it's updated. So yeah. The Burgundy Merino continues. It's a good thing that I really like Burgundy. So this is it, I'd say. You can find everything I talked about on the creativemother.de website. You can send me an email at susanne@creativemother.de. That's Susanne is SUSANNE. It's SUS, not SUZ. That's the German way of writing it. Then you can find me on Revelry as Creative Mother, and on Instagram and Twitter as Free Jazz Mama. Also on Pinterest, I think, but I'm never there, so don't bother. You can find me on YouTube as Creative Mother, I think. And also there's the Patreon. I'm thinking of posting another goal, like so right now, when you're signing up to support the podcast on Patreon, you're getting a newsletter once a month. Unfortunately, the newsletter is in German. It's a nice newsletter, though, and if you sign up now, you can read all the old newsletters. And if you sign up and say that you're only speaking English, then just tell me and I'll translate them into English, no problem. And I've thought about that. As you can see when you watch this on YouTube, the lighting is awful, especially when I'm moving my hands like this. It gets darker and lighter. Funny. So I want to, if I reach $50 per month for 2 months in a row, I will buy myself a nice little light so that the lighting for the podcast becomes better. So that's my next goal. So I hope that you enjoyed this, and I'm saying until the next time, thanks for listening, and happy knitting. Ciao.